Hi, and welcome to this edition of Cisco Chat. I am Patrick Vitelloni, Product Marketing Manager here at Cisco. Today, we're going to be talking about the Catalyst 8000 Edge platforms, Cisco's latest device. They just came out with it. They just announced it. Over 10 years of innovation. We're joined by Kareli Sankar, Manager of Technical Marketing at Cisco, and Justin Cohen, Innovation Architect for Cisco Innovation Labs. Kareli, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Justin. Happy to be here. Let me say a little bit about myself. I'm a technical marketing engineer here at Cisco, but prior to that, I put in my fair time at Cisco Tech, 6.5 years as a tech engineer. And then I moved on to being a technical marketing engineer. Now I manage the team that I used to be part of, and my team covers all things routers, ISRs, ASRs, CSRs, now the 8000V, ENCS, you name it. We cover all of the technologies that run on these routers as well. I'll turn it over to Justin so he could introduce himself.
Thanks, Kareli, and it's great to be here with Kareli and Patrick. My name is Justin Cohen. I am the Innovation Architect at the Toronto Innovation Labs, and we are part of Emerging Technology and Incubation, and we work with new innovations within Cisco, with our partners, with our customers. So really, we spend a lot of time working on what's really hot in the industry. So it's great to be here today.
Thanks, Justin. So yeah, it's good that we're all sitting down today talking about Catalyst 8000 because Kareli, what I appreciate about you and your team is just all the great technical content you make for Cisco. And Justin, being on that bleeding edge of technologies, I think we're really going to have a good discussion because one of the main things I think that's on people's minds is why is the Catalyst 8000, why does it exist? Why is it Catalyst? And why is it an edge platform? What does that mean versus being, say, a router? Kareli, why don't you start off with the Catalyst brand?
Sure. Thank you, Patrick. The Catalyst brand that was introduced in the very early 1990s. The reason for coming up with that name, as I hear from our historians, is the leaders at that time wanted something to catalyze the market. And this word went up on the whiteboard. And there we go, our first catalyst, which is where shipped. Now, I am part of intent-based networking group. And part of this group, we're trying to standardize this Catalyst brand. We brought this into our wireless pin from the switching pin. Now I manage the routing pin, and we are bringing in the Cisco 8000 into the routing family as well.
Great, yeah, and I see we have a slide up that should explain, Catalyst as a brand and where it extends from devices, as Kareli said, through wireless, through access points, through switches, and finally breaking into the branch architecture. Justin, any questions or ideas as to, what Catalyst means when it comes to enterprise class?
The big confusion we've had here, Patrick, is why are we calling this a catalyst? And Kareli and I have spent a lot of time on the phone and sort of talking about it. And I think that where we've ended up and the real understanding is if it's running iOS XE, it's going to be called a catalyst from this point forward, right? And we're trying to bring all these components of the network together. And as a result, it makes sense to unify everything under a single brand, under a single operating system. It makes everything super simple, getting away from having, tons of different versions of code for all sorts of things, really unifying the entire portfolio. And that's what they've done. And it's not just a branding thing, right? It's really started up as an engineering idea and then was extended to the brand. You'd agree with the way I'm saying that, Kareli? Do I have that right?
Absolutely. You brought up a very good point there, Justin. Unifying the image, the single image is all you need now and it takes one simple command to switch it between SD-WAN mode and the traditional iOS XE mode. Just controller mode enabled or controller mode disabled will switch it. Before, we need two different images to run SD-WAN versus non-SD-WAN. Now it's one single image.
So just, Corelli, on that note, on the single image note, because a lot of people I think are experiencing this where they have some routers at branches that are in the traditional autonomous mode, one image, and then maybe they're dipping their toes into SD-WAN. Does the single image help with migration? Like what is the real benefit behind condensing those to one?
The main benefit is it's just single image. You don't have to think about, oh, I'm going to run this SD-WAN image and what ROM1 version I have to run. Do I need to upgrade this? Or now I'm in the traditional, where do I even go to download that? Right? There was a lot of confusion, and we simplified that with this single image, which is iOS XE single image in 17.2.1R version. Go ahead, Justin.
You know, the other thing that's important is software quality, right? The less images that we have, the less images we're creating, the higher the level of software quality is going to ultimately be. So you're not asking yourself, well, in this autonomous image, does this defect exist? And then it doesn't exist over here on this unified image. So by reducing the number of images, reducing the amount of software, inherently the software quality is going to go up. So that's really the point of doing that. It's making it easier for the network engineers in the field that have to wonder which versions they should be running and where they're going to run into issues or not. For the traditionalists like myself, I spent a lot of my career working in that CLI, and there's a migration from that CLI to the cloud. And this is going to help you get to the cloud easier by unifying those software versions and at the same time making it comfortable that you know what's going on inside your devices. Because a lot of people are starting to learn, I have to let go of doing things in the CLI. I have to start looking at these unified management platforms.
That's a great point. You bring up a very good point, and you actually reminded me of my next question, which is, we call these a WAN edge platform. What is a WAN edge? I hear the perimeter might be disappearing. I hear the edge used in a few different ways. Can you maybe clear up what we're talking about when we say a WAN edge?
You know, the WAN edge is typically a device that's sitting right at the edge of a customer's network, right? Maybe it's sitting in a retail store, maybe it's sitting in a manufacturing facility. It's not at the data center. The data center could be in the cloud today. It could be in an actual physical data center. So the idea was to unify the platform together into a succinct edge device, an edge platform, right? That's why we're calling it an edge platform, not a router, to handle all of those edge operations. Corelli, can you talk a little bit about bringing all of those components together into a single platform at the edge?
Correct. Now, with the introduction of this 8,000 Catalyst, 8,000 Edge platforms family, and that is the perfect, correct branding name to use. Now, these WAN Edge, like he called out, is an infrastructure that enables connectivity from distributed enterprise locations to access resources, either in a private cloud or on a public cloud or data center. So that's a WAN Edge. We have 6 models that we launched end of October, 2 in the 8500 series and 4 in the 8300 series. The 8500 will be an evolution of ASR 1001HX and 1002HX, and the 8300 4 models, 2 1RU models and 2 2RU models, and these will be evolution for ISR 4451 and 4431. And these will be perfect WAN edges for any customer. And the 8500 towards the aggregation end, and the 8300 in the in branch edge.
I think that what we're doing at the edge as well on the 80, if you look at the 8300, we're really trying to take what used to be these sort of point products, right? You'd have a firewall, you'd have a switch, maybe you have a router, you're managing all these devices. We're trying to unify all of those into a single platform so that way it's easy for customers to understand and to manage by making the internals flexible. And the 8300, which is actually what's sitting beside me here, that CPU flexibility in order to be able to assign the power and the resources to the applications that we're running at that edge and reduce the number of devices at the edge is going to make it easier for engineers to manage their stuff, right? So it's not just a router, it's not just a firewalling device, it is a true platform, right down to power over Ethernet blades that we can slide right into these platforms, everything in a single platform, unifying it as a platform.
That
You
is
showed off the 8500. Patrick, do you mind if I showed everybody the
yeah,
toy that
yeah.
I have? Cool.
Go ahead.
This is the 8500. Let me plug this in so you all can see the Christmas light here.
And while Curly's
What
plugging
I
it in, I have to say these devices are hefty. There's no question. There's real heft. The industrial design inside these devices is super impressive. So
Can you all
Curly's going to
see
have to
this?
lift that.
Can you all see?
To push it up a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful.
This is
Look at
the 8500-12X. And the 12X is for the 12 10 gig ports that it comes with. This is the younger brother of the two. The older brother has terrific port capacity, 100 gigs, 40 gigs, as well as 10 gig port capacity. And all of these ports support MACsec, and that's another beauty of it. Comes in a 1RE form factor, and these
that.
guys are beasts with built-in QFB 3.0 innovation that we'll talk about later in the segment.
Yeah, yeah. And I also notice, are those rounded corners?
Oh yes, that's another innovation, right? How many times I can't even begin to count the number of times I've slashed my wrist or tore my nice blouses putting in or rack mounting these chassis that have very sharp edges. And now with this innovation, the company that used to design the Ferraris, Pininfarina, designed as these chassis, as you see these vent holes for air circulation now, these aren't rounded anymore. These are hexagon shape to facilitate airflow from the back to front and front to back as well. And they also have RFID tag here. And if you don't want it, it's just a matter of 2 screws. You can just remove that. And we also have a label tray. Look at this. Today,
Oh,
we were on a webinar and someone was just blown away by this. And he said, it helps so much to get the serial number from the back of the devices. And I told him, tell me about it. I have even tripped power supply trying to maneuver this spaghetti mess, trying to get the serial number when I was outside of Cisco in order to open tag cases. Now you have the serial number information right here. Piece of cake. You don't have to maneuver through the spaghetti mess.
We've even had in the past some serial numbers that were actually even on top or on the bottom of a device, which makes it completely impossible to read if it's racked, top to bottom in a rack. And from an industrial design perspective, I'm actually holding a module. So this is the 10 gig WAN module from the 8300, and I'll hold it up to the camera so you can see those hexagon holes. And the hexagon holes even extend over the curved edge. So the curved edge still has those hexagon holes in there. And this isn't just something that looks really great, as Crowley was saying, designed by Pininfarina for us. But this is an industrial design specifically to create better cooling, right? The hexagon holes give us more cooling. It uses less material, which means it's more ecologically friendly. It's not just about making them good looking. It's about making them perform better.
By the way,
You
they
you
do
bring
look good.
you both bring up a good point, and that is, we don't really talk about that on the marketing side. We're always talking about all the exciting stuff Cisco's doing from a software perspective because it really is doing amazing things. But people just kind of expect Cisco now to, make hardware that's really, really nice. And so we don't really talk about it too much. So thank you for bringing up those aspects on the call. One thing I'm wondering, we call it a Catalyst 8000 edge platform. We've talked about the WAN edge. We've talked about the cloud. what is the experience going to be like for that network engineer who's maybe stuck with a 10-year-old router? Maybe it is a Cisco ISRG2, all their applications are moving to AWS and to Azure. What is that experience going to be like, and why should they upgrade to something like Catalyst 8000?
Can you take that, Justin? Or you want me to?
Yeah, that from a performance perspective, if you're looking at having an edge platform that has everything in it, you want performance and manageability, but then you want the ability to bring that connectivity into the cloud, right? That's where the Catalyst 8000V can start to play a role. As people start to network applications inside, even running applications inside these devices, you really have to have something that's flexible. There's that old Alan Kay saying, right? People who are really serious about software should be making their own hardware, and we're doing that. And at some point, the software has to run somewhere. We want our customers to have a safe, secure, and high performance piece of hardware to run our world-class software on. And that's why this has been engineered the way it has. We spend unbelievable amounts of time engineering the hardware for this stuff to run on so that we can provide that level of software quality running on top of that hardware platform. So it's really bringing the two of those things together in order to create a quality experience for the customer.
If I can
Corelli,
add
do you have
on
anything
just
on
one
that?
more, yes. It was 1993, I believe. We had this ISR 2500, and it was capable of processing one packet at a time. Now, let's talk about this 8500 with QFB 3.0, right? It's got 224 PPEs, and those are packet processing engines, and each of them have 4 threads. And with that, it could process 896 packets parallelly at the same time. Just imagine the amount of throughput that this tiny 1RU platform can produce. And this is the reason customers have asked us. This is the reason we built it for our customers, for our partners, for a colo use case. Just imagine a 42RU, Patrick and Justin, just stacked one after the other with these 1RU babies. It can just produce so much throughput at such high port capacity.
So if we, I'd like to put that into perspective for a second, Corelli, because it's important to understand, because, we throw a lot of numbers out there, and to compare it, the 8500, the Catalyst 8500 is the evolution of the ASR 1000, right? How many U did we need before to get the same performance as what we're getting with the 8500? Right, so 4U. So we're getting 4 times the performance in the Catalyst 8500 than we were getting before. So now we have 4 times performance in 1U. So that's really amazing for someone who's operating in a colo. Maybe you're aggregating branch locations, whether it's retail or manufacturing, and you want that performance. And not only do you want the performance, but you want encrypted SD-WAN performance into your data center. And that's really the driver for this, is people wanted that SD-WAN performance into their high density data center.
That's a great point. And, Corelli, you mentioned getting that all-in-one RU, and you also mentioned QFP 3.0. And I don't think many people understand that Cisco does make its own silicon, and they're very strategic about what they build. When it comes to choosing SD-WAN, not every company can do that. There's a couple who tout chips, but why is Cisco better? Like, what is Cisco's approach? What is the quantum flow processor?
This is Cisco's innovation, the QFB 3.0. We started out in 2008 with QFB 1 that had 40 cores, and now we have 224 cores. And the unique thing about this 3.0 QFB, Patrick, is the fact that the crypto engine is inside of this ASIC as well as the L2 functionality. Prior to this, on QFB 1.0 and 2.0, what we need to do is we receive the packets that come in, and if it requires any encryption or decryption, then we punt it out externally to another piece of hardware, get that done, and bring it back here for the traffic redirector. 3.0 ASIC We have everything put in place, the 224 PPEs, as well as the 16 dedicated engines that do decryption and encryption right here within the chipset before we send the packet out. So that's what gives us this enormous throughput.
That's incredible. And I hear it's also flexible too. So, you know, if IPv7 were released tomorrow, your Cisco platform could run it. It's, you know, a flexible ASIC. So the engineers tell me.
Yes,
We have
highly programmable. Correct. That is accurate.
we have a couple questions coming in from the audience, so I just want to ask them before we move on to another topic. Mauricio on YouTube asked, will the Catalyst 8000 series replace ISR and ASR running iOS XE? Justin, you mentioned ASR 1000 is now Catalyst 8500. So your take, you know, is the ASR 1000 going away?
So it's definitely not going away, right? So the platforms that we're talking about right now, the 8500, if we're talking about ASR 1K, are the evolution of the ASR 1K. So the ASR 1K, the evolution of that is the Catalyst 8500. The evolution of the ISR 4000 is the Catalyst 8300. But those ISR 4000s that you have, those ASR 1Ks that you have, are not going away anytime soon. You know, we're still improving upon them. There's still new software. There's still active product, right? So they're definitely not going away anytime soon. But these are the evolutions of those platforms.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And another thing is that, you know, believe it or not, there are features in ISR that weren't necessarily included in Catalyst 8000. They might be down the road, like your ISR 1000, which has embedded Wi-Fi. You know, that doesn't exist in Catalyst 8000. So I think you're exactly right. ISR, ASR, they're still around. They're still being worked on. It's an evolution. You're nail on the head. Ali on via YouTube had asked, oh, excuse me, I skipped Wayne's question. Wayne on LinkedIn, Corelli, you must have sold this one. He's asking if we can get it in the clear case.
Oh, don't you love the clear case? This is the clear case units that we manufacture, specifically 5 of each models that we manufacture to showcase them and our Lazy Susan at Cisco Live World of Solution. This shows you all of the internal printed circuit board that you see. And inside this board, there is a guitar symbol that our designers, the hardware designers, put in to indicate the internal project name for this. We named it after a band. So they made sure to put in the guitar. So if you get one of these platforms and if you end up opening that, you would see a guitar. And that shows you how passionate we are, how passionate our hardware designers are about this particular product.
Yeah, we put these little Easter eggs on a lot of the PCBs of our product. In some of our wireless product, you'll see Audrey Hepburn is actually silk screened onto the PCB. It's something our teams do to try to, you know, have a little bit of fun with these products. We take so much joy in manufacturing and coming up with these products. It's sort of our way of, you know, hiding something inside the box. I get that question a lot in the Cisco Innovation Labs. When we have customers come through, we have a lot of product that has clear cases on them, access points and things like that. And I would say we get a lot of those questions. Can we have it in the clear case? Unfortunately, the answer is no for various reasons. Things like thermal and stuff like that. So
makes sense. So just an aesthetic example. Great. Well, thanks for answering that. We have another question from Ali via YouTube. He's asking, what is the throughput for the 8000 series? Kind of a broad question. I'm guessing that maybe he's wondering what the maximum throughput is, but Corelli, I don't know if you know those numbers off the top of your head, but 8300, 8500, what throughput, you know, our customers getting?
So throughput wise, the 8500, the older brother of the two, can produce about 33 gigs of SD-WAN IMIX throughput, IPsec throughput. That's 354 bytes average packet size. And for the 8300, I have to look up. If you could give me this 1 second, I could look that up and let you know. But keep
Yeah,
going
sure.
on other questions.
Sure. We do have another question. That question is, I thought this was asked via LinkedIn. I thought the Catalyst family was reserved only for switches. How come, and we said this question was asked a lot. How come the Catalyst 8000 has become a brand for routers? And I will say it's not a router, it's an edge platform. Justin, please take it. Why are we calling it Catalyst? Why isn't it just switches?
Yeah, and I'll give Corelli another minute to get those exact numbers in
It's
front of her, so that way she's
yes,
not
it
getting
is. Mhm.
yeah.
Yes,
So
and
the,
I
the
have it right in front of me if you want me to go over that,
go,
Justin.
go ahead.
So the two models, the one that is an evolution for the 4251 platform can support up to 6,000 IPsec tunnels that scale, and for the throughput, up to 5 gigs of SD-WAN IPsec throughput. Now, every time we talk about throughput, and these 8300s can support the entire security stack, immediately the question becomes, is that throughput including all of the services? No, what the number that I gave you is just the SD-WAN IPsec throughput. But here's the innovation, right? We have data plane cores, control plane cores, service plane cores. What we have here in the 8300 software on a chip SoC architecture is the fact that now we have dynamic core allocation. If you want a service rich platform, we have a way to take the data plane cores and give that to the service plane to enhance the throughput that you get out of these boxes. And if you're not going to do services at all, that's fine. We can say this is a data plane heavy box, and you can configure all of the cores and allocate them to the data plane.
So you're saying, Corelli, that despite, the 8300 being a x86 platform, it's not a white box. We engineered it in a way to be much more effective and faster.
Yes, and that dynamic core allocation is coming in 17.4, which will require a reboot upon manipulating the cores, but starting 17.5, which will be our March release, it will not require a reboot at all. And not to take away from the question that you are posting for Justin, but I just found the information, so I wanted to share.
We might get it a couple times down the road as the call progresses. But Justin, why don't you take it? Why are we calling these edge platforms Catalyst? Why are more things at Cisco being branded Catalyst? Why not just switches?
No, Patrick, the unification of the network, right? And we started a lot of that with things like DNA. Really has driven the need to create a single network, and we're doing this under a single image with iOS XE. The reality is that the 8000 platform family, it's not a router, it's not a switch, it's not a security device, it's all of these things. It does what you need it to do. It's really an edge platform. So we wanted to put it under that name Catalyst because it makes sense. Everything running iOS XE has the name Catalyst on it. And to go back to the question that we were talking about earlier with Corelli, when we talk about performance on the Catalyst 8300 platform, we still have silicon in the 8300 as well, because when you start looking at things like, especially like the switching module that I'm holding in my hand, right? This switching module that slides into the 8300, if you look at these big heat sinks here, those are actually UADP. That's Unified Access Data Plane. Those are the same chips that exist inside your Catalyst 9000 series switches. Even the Catalyst 3850 runs on UADP. So we still have silicon inside these devices, right? And then there's the flexibility of the dynamic core allocation inside this box to do what you need it to do. So if you need to run microservices inside this platform, you can do that. If you need to run SD-WAN, you can do that. Because we're unifying everything under iOS XE, it really makes sense to simplify it. I think it's been a very long time since we actually manufactured a switch that was only a switch, right? I mean, it's been really growing for some time. I mean, every switch that we've had for some time has had some kind of routing capability or services capability.
Yeah, very informative. Thank you,
To
Justin.
add on to that, Patrick, every time we talk about the switch module, the UADP 2.0 mini switch module
Mhm.
that can go in the 8300, the question becomes, do I need to session into the switch module in order to configure the ports like before? No. Now the switch ports show up right there on your running config, and you can control, manage, configure these switch ports right from the iOS XE image. You don't have to session into a different console, a switch console at all,
Or
like
in your
before.
cloud, or in your cloud management. I think that's the other piece of it too, is that
Correct.
you can manage it inside your cloud management. It's part of the box. It's no longer sort of a switchblade that's sort of running in
Yes.
there side by side. It is a native switching device that's running inside there with the same UADP capabilities that you have with the other UADP platforms. That's where the true innovation is bringing all of this stuff together in a single platform with a single management interface that's easy for customers to deploy and manage.
Exactly. And we have parity between ISR 4K modules. We support almost all modules, 70 plus modules on these. And the 8300 for the first time had these four models have onboard 10 gig WAN ports. And these WAN ports support MACsec, and that's another good thing. And the UCSC blades, and there are questions coming on that as well. What I wanted to call out is the UCSC blades, M1 and M2 blades, will not be supported on the 8300. Only M3 blades will be supported on the 8300. Just wanted to make sure to mention that. And our platforms are the first platforms that support voice in the SD-WAN world. There's no platform that can support voice today.
The other thing, Patrick, I think it's important to talk about too is when we start unifying modules as well, what you'll notice across a lot of our portfolio is we're also unifying this. This is a PIM module. So this module is used for cellular, LTE, 4G, eventually 5G services inside our platforms. So the Catalyst 8300 uses this. This is the same module actually that's in our our industrial 1100, right? So it's the same module. So we're unifying and allowing you to use modules across multiple different products so that way you don't have all sorts of different modules. You can bring your modules with you. And I think this is actually a really good time to talk about one more thing that I think is really cool that we're also coming out with. And Corelli, maybe you can talk about the Catalyst Cellular Gateway, because that is a really, really cool new thing that we're doing.
Yes, and I missed to capture a few details on the 8300, and I'll move on to the cellular gateway right after I finish that. And now that you reminded me about the PIM module, I had to mention this. And there are three things that are very important to mention here. Number one, these 8300s come default shipped with 8 gigs of DRAM. As most of them may already know, in order to configure security features such as IPS, URL filtering, AMP, and ThreadGrid, which are our container-based applications that utilize the service plane cores, we have the course, but we need the memory to store the installation files, to store the events, logs, and other things that these services generate. So we ask for additional memory. So prior to this on ISR 4K, they have to order an additional 4 gigs of DRAM, and they have to open the box and put them in. Now we ship 8 gigs default on the platform. Not just that, prior to this, the redundant power supply is optional. One has to pay in order to get that. These come with the redundant power supply, and they also come with 16 gigs of storage on the 8300. Now I can move on to the Catalyst Cellular Gateway. Do
Well,
we
hold
have?
on one moment, just to let you know, we do still have some time. So I have a bunch of questions from the audience. There's stuff still on my mind. Let's dip into the Catalyst Cellular Gateway just a little bit later. You mentioned security and those containerized functions.
Yes.
There is a divergence between, whether customers run security in the cloud, for instance, through, say, Cisco's Umbrella, which now comes with Cisco SD-WAN when you buy DNA Premier. But you can also run security you can run it through the cloud dashboard, through vManage, on the actual platform, on premises, and you get that through DNA Advantage. Not everything that Umbrella does, but several layers. Why? Why would a customer trying to think about converging networking and security opt for maybe a cloud delivered Umbrella model versus, say, opt for running the security functions on the box on the Catalyst 8000?
Oh, I'm so glad you posed this question to me. I've done nothing but security in my entire life here at Cisco. I used to run SD-WAN security when I was a technical marketing engineer. So this is different use cases, right? Some enterprise customers, they do not have knowledgeable personnel at all of these branches to manage these security features. That's number one. The number two is these edge devices at the branches, they are they don't have all of the resources, cores or memory, right? You can say a lightweight unit with a smaller footprint that cannot or does not have enough resources to have all of these security features configured on them. In those cases, we can go the SASE route, which is the secure access service edge route, and tunnel all of the traffic to our umbrella SIG. You know, SASE is an industrial industry term, and which within Cisco, it is the umbrella SIG, Secure Internet Gateway. We can send all our traffic from the branch all the way to our umbrella cloud, where we get a cloud delivered firewall, DNS security, and content filtering, IP layer enforcement, as well as threat intel. So we get a variety of stuff. IPS is still not there, but it is on the roadmap. But if customers want everything, there are some verticals that still aren't comfortable to sending all of the traffic from the branch to the cloud. For them, we have everything that is capable of running right here on-prem on these 8,300 platforms, a stateful firewall that's application aware. That is the data plane feature, no problem with that. DNS web layer security, where we can redirect DNS packets to the cloud, and content filtering can be brought in based on the name resolution that we redirect to the cloud. So that is also a data plane feature. IPS, container-based feature. URL filtering. We have a contract with Bright Cloud, and they give us 82 different categories, and that can also be installed right there on the device. Advanced malware protection and threat grid, also container-based services. Not just that, in 17.2.1R, we also brought in TLS decryption, which means now that internet is going dark, majority of the traffic is HTTPS. Now we have a way to decrypt it, see where the traffic is going, apply that enforcement, re-encrypt it, send it back to the end destination, and do the same thing in the reverse direction. So different options.
I mean, the platform could do a lot, it sounds like, and I'm sure the performance is great when running those security functions. So it sounds like, a lot of traffic, high volume, no failure is acceptable. You might run cloud managed on-prem. We have a few questions. I'm going to go back to our live audience. Let's see. A question from Pushpender on YouTube. How many built-in ports in the Catalyst 8000?
Which model?
He did not specify, so why don't you say, 85 and 83?
So the 8500, the older of the two, has 100 gigs. There are different bays, bay 0, bay 1, and bay 2, and all three put together could give them 2 times 120 gigs. But it depends. There are different port combinations that are possible. The minute we enable 100 gigs, then you could only get to 100 gigs and the rest of the ports are disabled. And they can look into our technical decision maker or look at some community webinars and deep dives that we've already done in the past to get a lot of those architectural details. But I can't go over all of that in this session. So that's the older one. The 8500, the younger of the two, he could support 12 10 gig ports, right? So that's done. And the 8300, the nomenclature is, it starts with S and N. S stands for SM modules, the number of SM modules it can support, and N stands for NIM module, the number of NIM modules that the 8300 supports. And then we go 4T2X, so 4 gig ports and 2 10 gig ports. So you can read the PID and be able to get what that PID will bring to you.
I have a, thank you, Corelli. I have so that's a very informative answer. So I hope he got what he needed. Justin, I think you'll be good for this. This is a little on the subjective side. From Muhammad on LinkedIn, is the Catalyst 8000 family better for SD-WAN and cloud solutions?
Well, I think, Patrick, that when the Catalyst 8000 family was designed, it was designed with SD-WAN in mind. So there's no question that from an SD-WAN perspective, it's really the best platform at the edge for SD-WAN right now, from a flexibility perspective, manageability perspective, and of course, performance, because it was designed for SD-WAN performance in mind. So there's no question that it's definitely the best platform for that SD-WAN performance. And just to back up to the previous question that Corelli was answering about and I just like to speak to the 8300 for 1 second. We talk about raw port count. If you're looking at the 8300, I would encourage everybody to go to cisco.com/go/cat8k. That's the URL that has all that information, and you can see the options that we have on the 8300, because it truly is a modular platform and can be built out in so many different ways to meet your needs. So whether it's a 10 gig routable port like this module, or whether you're looking for a whole bunch of switchable ports with power over Ethernet and M-Gig like this one, the options are endless on that platform. There's so many combinations. So hopefully that answers both of those.
Yes, it does. We've got a few. There is one on 4G, 5G, which I'll just hold because I know we're going to get to the Catalyst Cellular Gateway. We're going to give that its own little segment. But an interesting question from Hermanus on LinkedIn: is the control plane removed to integrate and use the DNA controller?
No.
Okay.
No.
We'll leave it at that. Ashley on Cisco.com asks, what is the maximum number of apps that can be hosted on the 8300 and 8500 platform?
The 8500, I knew this question was going to come up, and I was hoping somebody will ask this so I can clarify. The 8500 is an evaluation of ASR. We've already said that multiple times. And the ASR did not run IPS URL filtering, AMP, or thread grid. Those are all the container-based applications. Now, immediately people ask, why? Right. The ASRs can process tons and tons of throughput. We've stated that 33 gigs of SD-WAN IPsec throughput. So with that much throughput, there isn't enough control plane cores in the box to process all of that. The capability exists if you go to our DevNet. If it is a lightweight application, some IPSLA, for example, let's say some app, you could certainly do that. Guest shell is supported. You can run some lightweight application over KVM, even inside the 8500, but we do not support in SD-WAN those security apps that I talked about, IPS, URL filtering, AMP, or thread grid, or TLS decryption for that matter. The 8300, however, supports all of these, and these are the ones that we support, which is the snort-based IPS, URL filtering based on Bright Cloud database. They provide us 82 different categories. And AMP and ThreadGrid, also cloud-based. ThreadGrid was another acquisition that Cisco did a couple of years ago. If you want to go in depth into all of these features, just YouTube SD-WAN security. If you see me on the first on the link, just click that and go over that. I go over in depth about each and every single feature and how it needs to be configured on SD-WAN and how it works very clearly for our tech field day when we went FCS with SD-WAN security in December 2018.
Very informative. Thank you, Corelli. We have one more question before we get to that cellular one, and it's deep on the tech side. So essentially they're asking what's going to perform better, the FortiGate system on a chip or the QFP 3.0 in the 1RU. I think they're asking, you know, our forwarding ASIC versus the, I think they run firewall on like a system on chip. But yeah, any thoughts around chip versus chip?
It's my baby here. I'll never give up. QFP
Yeah.
3.0, baby.
Stack them up, get them on an SD-WAN fabric, and we'll see. Okay,
Yes.
we are at 10:45 Pacific, 10:46. So, Justin, you touched upon cellular in SD-WAN. It is an important topic. We're getting a question that's asking, do we have integrated Wi-Fi and or a 4 or 5G module? There's a lot there. So let's take the rest of the call to just kind of dive into, you know, maybe those PIMs and what Cisco released with the CCG.
Yeah, so let's talk about PIMs real quick. So the PIMs have been around for a little while, right? So similar to the one that I'm holding in my hand, we have multiple different versions of these LTE PIM modules that we have for the Catalyst 8000. By the way, it's the exact same PIM module as in the industrial ISR, so it's the same module. We also have, and we get this question in the innovation labs a lot, we do have band 14 support now. So for anybody that's working with AT&T FirstNet, first responder networks, both in Canada and the United States, we have band 14 support. So that's a question that I get a lot. The other problem that we have with these modules is this is a PIM module. A lot of the time, this PIM module is living inside this device, and it's in the bowels of a building. And even if it's not in the bowels of a building, it's in a data center, and it's racked, and it's inside a cabinet. And anybody that knows RF knows that having RF stuff inside a metal cabinet is just not ideal. So what we used to do is we would ship this card with, we had some cables that gave you an antenna that would stick on top of the rack to try to get better signal. But even with long cables, we still, sometimes you just couldn't get that signal. So we came up with the idea for the Cisco Catalyst Gateway to solve that by making it, by being able to take the radio and move it away from this device. Because for anybody that doesn't know, you can't just run 200, 300, 400 foot cables from these interfaces, right? We get too much loss. So Corelli, can you explain a little bit about the Cisco Catalyst Gateway? Because it's brand new and very cool.
Absolutely. Yes, when you mentioned ruggedized routers, and those are the IR routers, and the ISR 1K routers also support those PIM modules that you shared that my team supports. The IR routers, however, are from the IoT BU. Now, going with the cellular gateway, and this is the unit that we designed with the 4 antennas, single radio, dual SIMs. And what's neat about this is it's just an IP pass through. What you do is take an Ethernet cable and connect this cellular gateway into a switch in its own VLAN and take another Ethernet cable from your router's WAN interface and plug it in this isolated VLAN where these two are the only members. Now, this cellular gateway, you can move this far away from the data center with zero walls or windows to give you enough signal, and you can move it far away to a window or to some area, a veranda, clear uh, passage where you get good signal. What this unit does is talks to the provider, grabs the IP address and passes it to the router's WAN interface. From then on, now you have a WAN interface that's capable of taking the traffic that is hosted behind this router to the internet. And that's this innovation. Today we support a Cat 18 modem here on these, but going forward, our EFT is well underway for 5G sub-6. So if you would like to participate in the EFT, please reach out to your account team and we'll get you added onto this EFT program.
And it's really not a complex device. When I first sat down and talked to you, Corelli, about it, I must have asked you 100 questions, and you answered it very succinctly. This is basically a cellular Ethernet bridging device. It allows your Catalyst platform to see that network as if it was just Ethernet. So really, and my question to you was, could I put this 10 floors away if I wanted to?
Absolutely, you certainly could. No problem with
And
that at all.
And I want to say software, it's fully manageable in vManage, or at least will be very soon. So huge benefit to integrating Cisco products to, having the edge platform, the router be Cisco, having the Catalyst cellular gateway be Cisco, and, have SD-WAN.
I
Just
mean,
stay
So
within
even
the
if
Ethernet limitations, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, even if I could take this radio as a perfect example, if I have a data center on a floor, even if I could extend it out into the hallway, 100 feet away, something like that. From an RF perspective, if I put 100-foot cables on this device and I try to put antennas 100 feet away, you could do it, but the amount of loss of signal is very, very significant. What you see with the Catalyst cellular gateway is the antennas are attached directly to the radio, right? Just like on an access point, a Wi-Fi access point. So you're going to get the ultimate in signal, absolute the lowest loss possible, and get that radio as far out as you possibly can. So this is going to, it's a small thing. It sounds like a small thing, but it really is a big thing, especially in markets in the world where LTE and wireless are the primary way people are getting internet service or connectivity.
Oh, here's
So
another thing, Justin. If you want to travel when it opens up, and if you have a huge layover, take one of these in your backpack. Any device that is capable of acquiring an IP address using DHCP, you'll be on your way browsing the internet with this.
you may get
and
stopped at the gate, but
And Corelli, you actually said something very important. That gateway, the Catalyst Cellular Gateway, is not only for the Catalyst 8000. It will work with an ISR 4K. Like you just said, it would
Exactly.
work with your laptop if you really wanted to do that. The point
Yes.
is that device is so flexible that it works with all of our existing platforms now. So
and
And
and you and with the next SD-WAN release, you're going to get that full integration in vManage too. So, if you've got Huawei or Juniper or whatever in your branch, you can still use the Catalyst Cellular Gateway into the Ethernet port, but there's benefits to actually going Cisco.
exactly, I was going to mention that as well, Patrick. The minute we talk about this, and the question becomes, how do we manage this? And there are multiple ways to manage that. We have web UI, that is built-in UI that comes free with iOS XE. We could use that to manage this device. And there is a cellular gateway icon on the far left panel. And you can click on that and configure that. In the SD-WAN world, and there are asks from our service provider spaces asking us whether one vManage controller setup can manage all of the cellular gateways, and another one manage the host device, which are these routers. Yes, that's absolutely possible. One set of controllers managing the routers, and another set of controllers managing the cellular gateways. And if you want one set of controllers to manage both of them, that's perfectly fine as well. So we offer a variety of management solutions for enterprise customers and partners with the routers and the cellular gateways tethered to them.
I see we have 6 minutes left. I want to ask like one more question before we close and send folks to the website. We're talking about 5G. We're saying Cisco's releasing a sub-6 model. What are the differences between sub-6 and millimeter wave? And, if you want to get into that a little bit, and do you think millimeter wave will actually take off? Because as I understand it, you're going to need a device at every single city block. Trees obscure the signal, but we're talking 10 gigs a second, like on a phone. So what are your thoughts around sub-6 and millimeter wave, and how that's going to look?
I enjoy the screenshot that you sent today to explain that, Patrick.
Oh, T-Mobile shared that. They create, what a graphic, right?
Beautifully explained. But here's my take. It is going to take off, is my impression, opinion, because we are positioning just this cellular gateway in a remote worker's home office as primary method of communicating to the internet. And many of the park services have asked us the same thing, where a wired WAN interface is not possible at all. There is no Ethernet run. So how do those locations out in the boonies go out to the internet? And this is the best way. In fact, they want us to provide this with Wi-Fi capability as well. So when you go with something, there's always an ask to add on to that. So my take is it's going to take off.
Millimeter
I
wave.
think that I think where it's going to take off as well is if you look at the IoT marketplace, right? The number of these billions and billions of devices we see that are being connected to the network over time, more and more IoT devices, maybe they're battery powered, maybe they're solar powered, they're sending either small amounts of data or large amounts of data. When we look at 5G, it's really more about device density than performance. Absolutely, performance is there, and 5G is going to deliver on that performance. But it's really more about having a lot of devices on the network with all of these IoT devices generating data and being connected. So it's going to be an interesting time as we move from where we are today. And Sub-6 is a great stepping stone to get us into that technology. And then IoT is just going to explode with millimeter wave, right, over time. But it's going to be some time till we're there, for sure.
Can you plug a Catalyst Cellular Gateway in at home? You know, your home, you got Comcast, you've got whatever they lease you. It's got an Ethernet port. You know, can you use a CCG at home and get better cell signal?
If that interface is capable of acquiring an IP address using DHCP, and if those two are the only two devices on that VLAN, certainly. Because if you put other devices, then the other device may get the IP address that the cellular gateway may be sending, right? So that's the requirement, that these two should be the only devices in that that particular VLAN. And the other thing, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead. We do have to close after this answer, so I'll let you wrap up what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's a requirement. That's all we have. And what I was going to say was just day before yesterday, yesterday I believe, day before yesterday. Yesterday was Cisco holiday. Day before yesterday, our engineer David Roten presented a webinar for our Cisco communities on the topic all things LTE. He covered the cellular gateway in great detail with the use cases and stuff. Please just Google that and listen to that recording. He did an amazing job.
Great. We'll do that. So folks, you heard it here first. You know, Cisco releasing the Catalyst 8000, really betting on SD-WAN and the edge developing, and we're doing it the best. And cellular, you know, you've got advanced 4G LTE right now. You're going to have sub-6 5G very soon. Exciting products. I would like to thank our guests here today, Corelli and Justin. Thank you so much for joining and lending your expertise.
Thank you so much, Patrick and Justin. And
thank
to
you very
all
much.
our listeners, thank you so much for attending today's Cisco Chat.
Yeah, and to the folks listening, if you want to find out more information for yourself, you can find out everything on the Catalyst 8000 Cisco website. They'll pull it up on the video. Click the call to action, click the CTA, have a visit, look at the pictures, build a route, build an edge platform, build a router, go to ASR if you want, but stay with Catalyst 8000 and take a look at the Catalyst Cellular Gateway 2 while you're at it. We are doing very exciting things.
And they're all orderable today.
That's another great point. All orderable today. We're doing it. We're here. Cisco, thank you.